Hey guys, this is Belf from Team Kaiser Vanguard, and I'm here bringing you a Narukami Vanquisher deck profile. People are probably asking, hey Belf, why aren't you playing Kagero? Why aren't you uploading a Kagero deck profile? I'm doing what Kai did in Season 2. Kagero's a bit poo right now, so I've switched over to Narukami. So the first thing that we play is 4 copies of Dragonic Vanquisher. Now, this guy is your main ride target. He's the reason you want to play this deck. This card is fantastic. So obviously he has the Excel gift, we'll go into that later. But on Vanguard, during your turn, if a total of 3 or more cards from any zone were bound, including the hand, he gives your entire front row plus 10k. This is a great skill for busting through triggers. This is a good skill because you do a lot of multi-attacking as well. And on Vanguard, once per turn, you can counterblast 1 and choose one of any player's front row units and bind it. And then if your soul is a grade 3, then both players have to choose a card from their hand and bind it as well, which turns on his first skill. This card is fantastic. You are able to bind something and then bind something from both players' hands, turn on his first skill, and most of your cards get abilities when they are bound themselves, so he turns on his own abilities and he enables your multi-attack. So to help do that, we're playing 4 copies of the Limited Fight All-Star Jaggi Shoptribune. Now, this guy lets you have a grade 3 in the soul without actually having to ride a separate grade 3 and then ride a Vanquisher, which is super important. Now, he has the skill on Vanguard or Rearguard. When it attacks a Vanguard, you can bind a card from your hand and choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and bind it. And if your opponent has an empty front row, you draw a card. So not only, even if you don't bind something which is a combo piece, you are able to just get a 1-for-1 and a retire, which is really nice. You can bind something that you don't need and get something back that you actually do need and you actually want to draw. Like maybe a trigger that you can use to guard with, or another combo piece, like if you have this guy on Rearguard and you have Vanquisher on Vanguard. And then he has the skill on Rearguard. At the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if your Vanguard is Dragonic Vanquisher, you can put this guy into the soul and draw another card. So this guy has an on-attack ability and an end-of-the-battle ability. This guy can draw you 2 cards, and you can put him into the soul after that, and he then gives you a grade 3 in the soul for your upcoming Vanquisher turn. This card is, this is why this deck is playable in Limited Fight, and this is arguably the reason why this is playable in Standard. This guy is such a fantastic enabler, a fantastic combo piece. You have to play 4 copies of these. I've seen builds where people are playing the Eradicator grade 3 from set 5. I don't think that's correct. I think that card compared to the combo potential of this kind of list, I just don't think that that's worth playing anymore. And then speaking of combo enablers, we're playing 4 copies of Shatterer. I don't think he's as good as his original incarnation, but he has the skill on Rearguard. He's only an 8k grade 2, which might be a problem if you ride him a little bit, if you get rushed. But anyway, on Rearguard, he has the skill, when its attack hits a Vanguard, you Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and choose one of your opponent's front row Rearguards and bind it. So he's really good when you try and rush on the grade 2 turn. He enables bind combos by himself. He, say if you only have bound one of your opponent's Rearguards and you have another random bind, this guy can then be the 3rd bind to turn on your Vanquisher turn. And his other ability is when this guy gets bound from the hand during your turn, you can call him to Rearguard for free and he gains 10k power. So this is part of why Vanquisher's skill is not usually a minus and why Jaggi Shot's skill is not usually a minus, because you get to call cards like this that are then able to call themselves when they're bound, floating you free advantage. I think in this kind of build you have to play 4 of this card. He is one of your key extenders. He is a fantastic call mid-battle phase. And yeah, this card is just very high quality. And to supplement this, we're playing 4 copies of Shred Dragon. Now, if you play Vanquisher, you have to play this card. This guy has the Rearguard ability when it attacks. If your Vanguard is Dragonic Vanquisher, you Soul Blast 1, you draw a card, and then you bind a card from your hand. So you can use this to mid-battle phase, call one of these for a mid-battle extend. This guy lets you loop bad cards out of your hand and get better cards out. And this guy is almost always live because you are almost always on a Vanquisher Vanguard. Now next, we play 2 copies of Choo, because unfortunately he's only at 2 copies because of the ban list. But this guy is really, really strong. He is the only kind of multi-attack that is by itself. So He has the ability, when placed, you can Counterblast 1, choose a column, bind the card in the front, and then the card in the back, you can move it forward. So this guy lets you move problematic cards to the front, and remove problematic cards from the front that already exist. So, say you're the strong Melody Grade 2s, or Melody Grade 3s in Bermuda Triangle, you can snipe those, you can pull Carrows forward, and then bind them, which is really strong. And then he has the Rearguard skill, once per turn, at the end of the battle that your Vanguard attacked. If your opponent has an empty front row, you can Counterblast 1 and stand this guy. This guy, alongside Shatterer, is one of the reasons why it's not 100% correct to only go Force 2. So, this deck draws a lot, so the extra draw from this might not be super necessary, and if your grip has a lot of extenders like Chatterers, these, and another grade one we can go into later, it might actually be right to play Excel 1, just to put this guy on there, swing for 19 or 29 if your Vanquisher skill is live, and then get the restand. I mean, in general, obviously Excel 2 is very high quality, but Excel 1 is able to... You can build bigger numbers against decks that struggle against higher numbers and don't play higher card quality. And the next card we play is 2 Voltage Horn. This is basically just the 3rd and 4th copies of Choo. It's not as good as Choo, but we play what we can get at this point. I'm playing this over Zuitan. Please do not play that card. That card is awful. It's only good if you're playing Gauntlet Buster, and I don't think Gauntlet Buster is very good right now. So please just play this card. Anyway, it has the skill during a turn if either player's card was bound, gains 5k. So yeah, this guy is 14 or 24 by himself whenever you resolve Vanquisher skill, which is really nice. And then on Rearguard, he gains the ability, when it attacks a Vanguard, you can Counterblast 1, choose a column, bind the front row thing, and then choose up to one of your opponent's Rearguards in the back row and move it to an open front row in the same column. So this guy's Rearguard skill is the same as Choo's first skill, which is kind of why we play him. Just take problematic cards from the back row, move them forward, and then we can snipe them. And then the last grade 2 we play is a single copy of Dragonic Deathscythe. This card is fantastic on Excel, and I just wanted one more flex grade 2, and I've always been impressed with this card. I was considering playing the grade 2 12k with 10k shield, the promo from the promo packs, but I just never had the opportunity to ever resolve his skill, or ever make him live enough to warrant playing him, so I'm just playing a single copy of Deathscythe. This deck does Soul Blast a lot, especially with Deathscythe being a card that Soul Blasts 2 by himself, but we actually play enough units that go back into the Soul. We have a Soul Charge engine in this clan, we have Jaggi shots going to Soul, which is... all of that is awesome stuff. I think that this could very easily be a 3rd copy of Voltage Horn if you don't want to play this. It could very easily... this is probably the closest thing you could play to a Zuitan, but I don't think it's worth. I think that card is awful. Anyway, we play 4 copies of one of the reasons why the deck is playable, Rising Phoenix. This card is fantastic. So in the drop zone, when your opponent's Rearguard is bound during your turn, you can call this card to Rearguard, and he gains 3k power. So using a mid-battle phase extender, you can basically replace most of your front row if you don't need them with Phoenixes. They all gain the plus 10k from Vanquisher skills, continuous ability. There is a reason why this card is like $20. This card is obscenely powerful and gives the deck like an extra 2 attacks every battle phase if you don't care about losing advantage. I cannot see any Narukami deck from now on not playing 4 copies of this. This card is fantastic. And speaking of extenders, we play 4 copies of Desert Gunner Bahan. So when he's bound from the hand during your turn, you can call this card to Rearguard. So again, he's nullifying that cost from Vanquisher, he's nullifying that cost from Jaggi Shot, and he's able to call himself and just be a free attacker mid-battle phase. You can... like, I think that this card is just amazing. And when he's placed, if any player's card was bound this turn, so if he binds himself from his skill and then he calls, he procs himself, or if you just have resolved basically any Narukami skill, he gets to trigger, and if that happens, you get to Soul Charge 1, which helps you fill your soul for, like, you can just randomly soul charge a grade 3 on your Vanquisher turn and then go, cool, I've won the game. You can occasionally soul charge key cards and then get to resolve one of your other Soul Blast units, like a Shatterer, like a Deathscythe. This card is very, very strong. Like this card is deceptively strong. Like, I will hard mulligan to not ride copies of these. I would rather ride this, and then you can Soul Blast this out and use it later. I would rather not ride this card. I think that this card is, like, the underdog MVP of this clan. And then at the end of actual units, we're playing 4 copies of Tball Tribune. If your clan has access to these grade 3 searches, these grade 1, when it's placed, you look at the top 5 for a grade 3, and if you do add one, you discard a card, and then it has another skill that whenever your clan is doing what it's supposed to do, it gains 5k. If your clan has access to these cards, you need to play 4 copies, basically. This was in the first wave of this support for these grade 3 searches, and I still think this is one of the best ones. I think only the Gear Chronicle one is better, or maybe even the Brave one from the next extra booster coming out. But yeah, you basically have to play 4 copies of this because you need to find your Vanquishers. This card is super important, and it is your main win condition. And being able to play this as essentially an early game extra 4 copies, it's very, very strong. And being able to pitch copies of Rising Phoenix to the drop zone for this guy, it just feels amazing. Like, this card, you have to play 4 copies of this card. Like, a lot of these Narukami shells, especially the Vanquisher shell, are full of staples that you have to play 4 copies of, which is a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, this is probably the closest thing we have to a combo deck in Standard, outside of, like, Pale Moon, especially now that Dorian is restricted to 1 copy. Anyway, let's go into the triggers. This is a combo deck, so you want to find your pieces. So I am playing 8 draw triggers. I know what you guys are saying. Why don't you play crits? Crits make you win the game. For the simple reason that this deck gets 6 to 8 attacks every turn regardless, and you don't really have a restander or you don't need attack pressure outside of on your Choo. So being able to just get extra draws and find extra combo pieces, you draw a lot anyway, so you can just build up a massive hand, and your opponent likely can't kill you on the crackback, and then you can finish them in the next turn with your Vanquisher swing. I think that 8 draws, like, there's an argument for going 6-6 with 6 critical triggers, but right now I'm on 8, and I really, really like this ratio. But I can see an argument going 7-5, I can see an argument going 6-6. This is one of the few flex spots in this kind of deck. I personally am on 8-4, but again, your mileage may vary. Also, why is this card like £20? It is actually ridiculous how expensive this thing is. And then to round it off, we obviously have to play 4 copies of the heal trigger. Healing is good, 20k shield is good. I don't think there's any excuse to not play this. And then, arguably, the most controversial thing to put in the deck is your choice of starter. I mean, they all do the same thing, but I'm only playing this one because this is a Vanquisher shell. This was the original Vanquisher starter, and they haven't retrained Choo yet for Standard. As soon as Choo comes out, I'm putting it in every Narukami deck I play. Anyway, this has been my Narukami deck profile as of, I believe it's VB 13, 12, whatever set this came out in. Extra Booster 12. I don't think this clan is going to be getting support anytime soon. If there's anything you guys recommend that I play in this, you want some gameplay videos of this, please just drop a comment, drop a like. The engagement for the algorithm is fantastic, especially for a growing channel like ours. Anyway, this has been Belf from Team Kaiser Vanguard, signing off, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Stay safe.